1941, the war was heating up, and Hitler's dominance in World War II was becoming more apparent. His air force launched relentless attacks on Britain, raining thousands of firebombs down on London. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill in desperation pleaded for intervention from the United States, but his cries went unanswered. Meanwhile, the alliance between Germany, Italy, and Japan, the Axis powers, was growing stronger and more unstoppable by the day. Now Hitler was preparing to conquer the world, planning a massive invasion along the Soviet Union's border with a force of 3 million soldiers. German troops stationed in Poland were given a single fateful order: attack the Soviet Union. That order was known as Operation Barbarossa, and this is one of the darkest chapters in the history of World War II. The German army, having successfully occupied Poland, received a critical order from High Command, delivered by a soldier named Heinz Dorsel. He arrived from headquarters carrying a message of utmost importance, a message that could only be read once in a lifetime, then had to be destroyed immediately. That message contained a chilling command, a massive invasion of the Soviet Union, an assault that would become the largest military invasion in human history, an assault known as Operation Barbarossa. After receiving the order, hundreds of German Army and Air Force units began moving toward the Soviet border. From a distance, German artillery forces unleashed a relentless barrage of fire. The Soviet Red Army on the front lines had no idea that the thunder and explosions were the beginning of a German assault. As German troops advanced into several regions, they were met with unexpected scenes, civilians welcoming them with open arms. Under Stalin's rule, many had been left to starve or were executed. To them, the Germans looked like heroes. A German soldier named Bernhard Batzler later confessed that, in this brutal war, they had been ordered to wipe out Stalin's people. Hitler's forces were now spreading rapidly across the globe. They had already reached Norway and the Arctic Circle, and now Hitler assigned his favorite general, Erwin Rommel, to seize North Africa from British control. German artillery units began crossing the sea. Upon arriving at the port, they were welcomed by Rommel himself, who had already set foot in Egyptian territory. In this mission, Rommel and his troops were tasked with pushing back British forces from Libya and Egypt. As they entered several areas, there was no resistance. In fact, many locals were thrilled to see the Germans arrive, because the Egyptian people deeply resented the British occupiers. The time had come. Rommel and his troops launched their assault with a storm of artillery fire. German tanks began rolling into Libya, determined to drive the British out. As part of his attack strategy, Rommel ordered his soldiers to kick up massive clouds of dust, designed to trick the British into thinking a huge wave of tanks was approaching. The deception worked. The British forces withdrew from Libya without a fight. The German troops, having faced no resistance, started to believe their mission in Libya was nothing more than a holiday. Meanwhile, in Europe, Nazi forces were pushing deeper into the east. They had successfully stormed Kiev. With Ukraine's capital under his control, Hitler now set his sights on Leningrad. His troops were closing in on Moscow, and Hitler, confident that victory was within reach, had already begun planning his grand victory parade. In the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, 370 kilometers off the coast of Iceland, on a clear morning with strong winds howling across the waves, German warships cut through the choppy sea. Intelligence reports had warned them. A British convoy was expected to pass through the area within a few hours. German forces sprang into action. Warships were carefully positioned, holding their fire, waiting for the perfect moment. The German battleship captain watched the unfolding scene with sharp focus. By midday, they spotted the British convoy. But the Germans didn't attack immediately. They shadowed the convoy in silence. Then, as night fell, the German submarines struck. The dark waters exploded into flames. The sea became a burning graveyard. Meanwhile, just 322 kilometers from Moscow, fierce battles continued to rage across the frozen land. The German military's strength and cunning tactics forced the Red Army into retreat. Now 1 million Soviet soldiers had been captured, and for those taken prisoner, suffering was guaranteed. But the Nazis didn't stop at the battlefield. Under Hitler's orders, they were to strike civilians, burning entire villages to the ground. As the war in Europe descended into sheer barbarism, Winston Churchill crossed the Atlantic to Newfoundland to meet with President Roosevelt. Churchill pleaded with him, begging the United States to join the fight. For 4 days straight, they discussed the matter, but Roosevelt stood firm in his refusal. The majority of the American people simply didn't want war. Yet behind the scenes, Roosevelt extended his hand in another way. Through aid. He sent logistical support and war equipment across the sea to Europe. These vital supplies traveled by ship, and the British Royal Navy was tasked with protecting the convoys. British warships patrolled the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. But out in the vast open waters, the British Royal Navy came under sudden attack from the German Luftwaffe. The British managed to fend off the air assault and believed no further danger lurked nearby. With no visible signs of German naval forces, they felt safe. What they didn't know was that the enemy was already watching, beneath the waves. Hidden below the surface, German submarines tracked their every move, silently preparing to strike, with torpedoes locked and ready. On the Eastern Front in Vyazma, 322 kilometers from Moscow, winter had arrived. The freezing conditions slowed Hitler's advance toward the Soviet capital. Muddy, frozen roads turned into a nightmare, making it nearly impossible for heavy vehicles and supply trucks to pass. German soldiers were forced to work together, clearing paths just to keep moving. To lighten the burden, one German commander gave a chilling order: execute the Russian prisoners of war. During this gruesome moment, 2 German soldiers, Wolfgang Horn and Heinz Dorsel, stood witness to the massacre. But the horror didn't end there. After the execution of POWs, German troops carried out mass killings of civilians. Over 1 million Jews and others deemed undesirable were brutally murdered. Despite thick layers of snow blanketing the Eastern Front, the German army pushed forward. By November 1941, German aircraft, the Luftwaffe, began bombarding Moscow in relentless waves. And now, German forces were just 80 kilometers from the gates of Moscow. On the other side, Stalin finally gave the order to strike back against the German forces, marking the beginning of the Soviet counteroffensive. And with that, the fire of World War II burned even hotter. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Japan's military expansion was spreading rapidly. They stormed through Korea, then pushed into China, Malaysia, and the Philippines, all with one goal: to dominate all of Asia. But as they advanced, they realized there was one force that could stand in their way: the United States Navy. For months, America remained divided on whether to enter the war. Japan used that time to study America's weaknesses. Yet, they still couldn't find a clear opening. So Japan's Emperor Hirohito made a bold and brutal decision: launch a surprise attack and wipe out the U.S. fleet at Pearl Harbor. On December 7, 1941, as Americans enjoyed a peaceful morning breeze, more than 350 Japanese warplanes were already on their way to Pearl Harbor. Within minutes, the skies over Pearl Harbor darkened with the roar of enemy aircraft. Peace shattered. Explosions echoed. Chaos erupted. In a devastatingly swift and coordinated strike, Japan crippled much of America's Pacific Fleet. In this surprise attack, Japan sank 5 battleships, destroyed 3 destroyers, and killed 2,000 American soldiers. From that moment, everything changed. President Franklin D. Roosevelt declared war, and now the United States was fully in. America had awakened its war machine, and it was ready to strike back. To be continued.